Hey guys, it's Will. Welcome back. Today I thought I'd bring you guys a video on the new developer update that the DBD devs just posted on the forums. And it's got a lot of stuff in it, a lot of really exciting stuff. It's something fun to see. I know that devs have in the past couple of days sort of been not leaking, but they've said there's a couple of like McLean said on stream that he's really excited for the next couple patches. And you never really know with devs, but after reading through this update, I am really excited for it. So I thought I'd go through it with you guys just in case you couldn't be bothered to read it yourself and maybe give some insight as well into what is going on behind the scenes. So here we are on the forums. This is the developer update. It says, we're back with another developer update, a series of posts going over the biggest changes coming to Dead by Daylight. This time around, we'll cover a long list of killers, perks, and quality of life updates that will appear in the PTB in the next patch. So the first thing they go through is the killer updates, and first up is Freddy. Now, Freddy's an interesting one because Freddy's one of those killers where his average kills, as they say here, is roughly 3 kills per match. And this is like throughout all ranks, right? This is, 3 all the way from rank 1 to rank 20. Freddy is a very oppressive killer, and I think he's been in need of some changes just so that people don't instantly want to DC slash, they're like, oh, we're going to lose this as soon as they get into a game with Freddy. So they decrease his movement speed while placing a snare to 4 meters per second. Previously, there was no speed change. And reduce the maximum number of place snares from 8 to 5. So this is a pretty heavy nerf on Freddy. Usually, when you would go around a loop with Freddy, he would just, whack a few snares down, and then slow you down around the loop and eventually either catch you or force you to drop the pallet. And it was basically the same at pretty much every loop, unless, he wanted to pull off some kind of mind game. This now limits Freddy's potential to just throw down as many snares as he wants to the loop, and it makes it much more valuable for a survivor, if they can, to leave that loop and go to another loop. Because the snares that Freddy's put down, he can't just get rid of them. And he'll have to recycle them. So if you can chain 2 loops together, for example, this could be super good. Or 2 or 3 loops, I would imagine. The maximum number of dream pallets is also decreased, but to be honest, pools have always been stronger than fake pallets. Maybe this will change with this patch. I'm not sure. I don't think so, considering they've also nerfed pallets. But yeah, that's just something we're going to have to see. He's also had to change to a few of his add-ons. Again, it kind of a bit of a nerf as well. So there were a lot of add-ons like Freddy's rope add-ons and his dress add-ons that previously would cause like lots of regression with speeds, doing gens, healing, etc. They've changed that now. They say that add-ons which previously reduce action speeds now make various actions louder. So like repairing generators, your grunts of pain when you're injured, and footsteps. So this is obviously, it's a change, but it's also a nerf, because Freddy's best add-ons, if you don't include his red paintbrush and his sort of ultra rare add-ons, were these dress and rope add-ons. It's really tended to slow you down. It basically acted like Thanatophobia, Sloppy, and Ruin all together just for free, with the add-ons. And add-ons on killers use add-ons pretty much every game, so yeah, this will be an interesting change. I think it's going to be quite a big nerf to Freddy all in all, but it also says that Black Box, also has a brand new effect. When an exit gate is open, it is blocked for sleeping survivors for the next 10 seconds. And I'm not actually going to talk about that yet because they changed the way that Freddy puts people to sleep again. And yeah, I'll read about that now. So alarm clocks have also received some tweaks to make their effects clearer and more rewarding. So using an alarm clock will now make you fully immune to sleep, including sleep caused by a killer hit for 30 seconds. So this now encourages survivors to go to their alarm boxes and wake up, even if Freddy's nearby. Like previously, if Freddy was nearby, or even if you were asleep, a lot of people wouldn't bother going and trying to go wake up, because usually the boxes would spawn on the opposite side of the map to where you fell asleep from, so it'd be a massive waste of time to go there with no real reward. Now, even if Freddy's near where your alarm box is, if you go and wake up, you're immune to the sleep, which obviously means that his dream snares don't affect you. And even if he hits you in chase, you're not instantly going to go into that sleep state, which means that around loops, those snares are going to be far less powerful. So I think it's going to make playing against Freddy much more interesting. And it adds like another thing to the game where, it's actually like a thing to go for, to go and try and wake yourself up instead of just like going, okay, I'm asleep now. I guess like I'm going to have a slightly worse time in chases, but I'm not running all the way across the map to wake up. So, it's still good for me overall. This effect is now shown in the HUD, which is good as well. So you'll be able to track that pretty easily. With these changes, we help to promote more strategic use of his dream traps rather than just placing them constantly during chase, as well as encouraging survivors to seek out and use alarm clocks. And then they say they're going to monitor and change as necessary. So I think this is interesting for Freddy. I think this might knock Freddy down a few pegs, which is what he's needed that kind of nerf for a while. I still think at the top of the top, if you're playing against like tournament teams and stuff, they're not going to have any. They never really had any issue against Freddy as he is now. There are other ways to play around him. It's more when you're playing solo or like, you know, not taking the game super seriously, like, you know, tournament practice or anything. Freddy was always just like really annoying, and you kind of felt like it was over from the beginning a lot of the time, especially against like a good Freddy. All right, so moving on, we got some changes to the Demogorgon, which also he's been needed for a while. Like, Demogorgon's a good killer. He's not overpowered by any means, but some quality of life changes here, kind of. So they buffed his portals, so they increased the speed while in portal, which is huge. They reduced the cooldown after exiting portal, which is also great. And then this is an interesting one. They increased the undetectable length after exiting a portal. So when Demogorgon uses his portal, obviously all the survivors still get that sound notification that, you know, he's going through, he's traversing the upside down, and then he's coming out. But a lot of the time, previously, Demogorgon would still come out undetectable, but the effect only lasted for like 1 or 2 seconds. So by the time that you've exited the portal, figured out where the survivors are, and are heading towards them, most likely they'll know and they'll be on the move. Now, I don't know how long they've increased this time to. It'll be interesting to see when this patch comes out. But if they've increased this to like 3, 4, 5 seconds, this could be huge for Demogorgon players, because you'll have that real sort of like sneaky, stealthy aspect to Demogorgon that previously wasn't really there. And it could be a really fun way to like sneak up on survivors who are like sitting on gens thinking he's nowhere near me. And I think also it's going to just passively create a lot more like fear around the map. So when you hear Demogorgon traversing, you know he's going to be undetectable for longer, so maybe you're more aware of your surroundings if you don't know exactly where his portals are. Yeah, so I think it's a pretty good buff, and there's also some more stuff. So they've also changed some of his add-ons. This is a very rare add-on that now survivors near activated portals are indicated by Killer Instinct without having to charge of the Abyss. So when you play Demogorgon, if you charge your M2 ability, people call it the Shred. If you charge that and then look around the map, if any survivors are near your portals, you'll get that sort of that Legion Killer Instinct thing where it goes boom, 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 and you can see where survivors are. Now with this add-on, whenever they're near any of your portals, without you having to, you know, manually press M2 and use your ability, you'll be able to see where they are, which is obviously a huge buff, because if you have a portal nearby, you can portal straight to them. You'll be undetectable for longer, so they won't know. It's just amazing. Brilliant. And then they've changed this add-on, which is one of those add-ons that basically makes your ability worse, but then you get more blood points. It's basically just when traversing the upside down, the portal you enter is destroyed, which is obviously quite bad, but I mean, you could just place another one down. Anyway, you get an additional 200 blood points, so yeah, we love blood points. Now, the Huntress. This is interesting as well. They basically haven't changed anything apart from her add-ons. They've changed both of her Ultra add-ons. So this Ultra add-on is Soldier's Pute? Oh god, I've actually butchered that. But now with this add-on, the Huntress moves at 4.6 meters per second when she has no hatches, which is a really nice change, because previously with Huntress, if you're at a strong loop against a really good survivor and you run out of hatchets, you're going to really struggle to catch them up. Like, Huntress, because of her ranged ability, already has a decreased movement speed. So looping the normal M1 way like a Trapper or a Michael isn't as effective with Huntress because of that decreased movement speed, because you rely on your hatches. But with this add-on, you get that increased movement speed when you don't have any hatches remaining, which is also probably going to shock a lot of survivors, and you might be able to get some nice hits from that, which is cool. Now, this is probably the biggest change for Huntress. Iridescent Head is a bit of a meme, probably the most well-known ultra rare add-on for any killer. Previously, this add-on basically did the same thing. It still inflicts dying upon the victim, which means that one hatchet toss, if you get hit by it, you're going straight to the dying state, even if you're healthy, which is obviously incredibly strong. Now, previously, you used to be able to pair this with another one of Huntress's add-ons, a very rare add-on, which allowed you to carry an extra 2 hatchets, which meant that you could carry 3 of these Iridescent Head hatchets together. With the changes to this add-on, as you can see here, it caps the maximum carry hatchets at 1, regardless of the effects of other add-ons. So you can no longer have that build, or that add-on combination where you've got Iridescent Head that, inflicts a dying upon the victim, and also have 3 of them. Now it's 1. So if you come up against, a Huntress in a game, and you know that she has Iridescent Head, you no longer have to worry about her having spare hatches. You know, as soon as she misses that first one, she's either going to have to go reload, or just go for the M1, which is why I think both of these Iridescent add-ons will work super well together now. Because even if she misses that hatchet, she's suddenly going to get that movement speed buff, and it's going to be crazy. But then, 2 Ultra add-ons together should work that way. It should be super strong. So I think this will be a super interesting combination to see in games. It's still going to be pretty scary. But a nice, slight nerf to Huntress's Iridescent Heads, at least. But I think it's far more interesting. Alright, and now the twins, which is the last of the killer changes. Not a whole lot done here, more just sort of passive nerfs to gameplay. Nothing to do with add-ons or anything. So they increase the cooldown after successfully downing a survivor with Victor from 3 to 5 seconds. So previously, you'd be able to go into Victor, and if you see an injured survivor, you could charge up Victor, hit them, down them, and then 3 seconds later, you could go and charge at someone else. And this was a big part of the Twins gameplay, a lot of slugging. The Twins, you'll always have good Twins players will really make use of Victor and be able to slug multiple survivors down at once to really slow the game down. So this is kind of a passive nerf to that, because now, after downing a survivor, you won't be able to instantly go and latch onto someone else who then cannot help that down survivor because they have to go and take Victor off their head. It's going to be harder for them to do that. Maybe give the survivors more of a chance to kick Victor and then pick up that survivor before Charlotte can come over and pick them up. Quality of life change. Camera control is now immediately restored when taking control of Charlotte. This always should have been the thing. This is just a change they've made from the bugs basically since her release. She was an absolute disaster when she got released, so I think they're still trying to make up for that now. So that's, it's great, but it should have been from the beginning. Here's an add-on change. So they did do some add-on change. Okay, sorry, I apologize. Silencing Cloth. Increase undetectable duration to 20 seconds upon taking control of Charlotte. So I believe previously this was 12 seconds. And I remember watching a Tofu video where he tried to make use of this add-on. I believe it's ultra rare as well. And I believe what he would do is he would switch from Charlotte to Victor every 12 seconds to make sure he was basically permanently undetectable. Only issue with that was all the bugs with Charlotte before. When you change camera too quickly, your camera would get stuck, or you'd be at an angle, you wouldn't be able to move Victor. It was crazy. So hopefully this will actually be a good add-on now, and I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a lot of content creators in the future, try and do this perma undetectable Charlotte build or whatever. But yeah, just an interesting change. And then her other ultra add-on, Iridescent Pendant, increased exposure duration to 30 seconds when a survivor crushes an idle Victor. Again, just a slight buff to her add-ons. Now, when a survivor crushes Victor, they are exposed for 30 seconds, which if Charlotte's nearby is obviously really, really strong. So yeah, just a good change. Okay, now let's move on to some changes they've made to perks. So Small Game was a perk which is super annoying to play with. I hate playing with it because you get a sound notification every time it comes off cooldown. It comes off cooldown very quickly. But basically, it used to show you where killer traps were, so you could just go over and break them. Basically, it was a really strong perk against Trapper, but that was basically its only use. So it has come to our attention that some of you really hate small piles of bones. To aid in your totem destroying mission, we've made some long requested changes to Small Game. So the changes they've made, Small Game now shows the number of remaining tokens as tokens on the perk. The detection range decreases by 5 degrees for each totem cleanse, and Small Game no longer detects killer traps. So now this Small Game is basically now changed to just a totem tracking perk. Which is good, because a lot of people do, especially for those tome challenges or those dailies. Well, I guess not dailies, but the tome challenges where you have to cleanse totems. This is going to be super useful. If you know the killer has Ruin, or you're in the end game and the killer has Noed, you can run around the map and quickly find the totems and cleanse them accordingly. So yeah, just a really nice change to this perk, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more people run this perk, even given the Ruin buff. Nerf. Okay, Lucky Break now hides scratch marks in addition to blood pools to help you lose the killer. To compensate, the total duration has now been reduced to 70, 80, 90 seconds. This is a really nice change. I think it should have been like this from the start. It doesn't really make sense that it wasn't, because obviously the vast majority of killers, especially at lower ranks, don't rely as much on blood pools to track survivors. They rely much more on scratch marks. So adding in the fact that Lucky Break now hides scratch marks as well as blood pools is a really nice buff to Lucky Break, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people start using this with if a lot of people start using this more, because previously I think a lot of people would pair this with Dance With Me, because obviously Dance With Me hides your scratch marks for 3 seconds after vaulting a pallet or a window. So yeah, now this can sort of be used on its own and still be effective, which is great. The next change is coming to Soul Guard. If you guys don't know, Soul Guard was a perk whereby if you when you were picked up off the ground, you'd basically get the endurance status effect, and if the killer hit you, you wouldn't be put into the dying state, kind of like a BT but from the ground. People used to pair this with Unbreakable a lot, so you could pick yourself up and then get hit, and you'd still be alright. One thing about Soul Guard as well, if there was a hex on the map, you basically were able to pick yourself up off the ground as well. So yeah, they changed a bit. It's only a small change, but Soul Guard now has a cooldown of 30 seconds after activating. So weirdly, I think this is because of content creators. Like I saw an Aaron video where they basically did a build and bullied this Oni, where they would constantly pick each other up with Soul Guard, Unbreakable, we're gonna live forever, we'll make it. Just these like giga healing perks off the ground, and just like, the killer wasn't able to down people quick enough to stop the survivors picking themselves up. So I think the change here has basically cancelled that out, which is a bit sad, because I feel like this kind of game where survivors would be abusing this would sort of be like a meme game, and it usually they'd end up losing anyway. So, and it was a massive blood point farm. It was just fun. It was just fun stuff. But I mean, they've changed it. I guess whatever. It's fine. Okay, open-handed. So open-handed now has an increased effect. So the range of your auras. So open-handed basically boosted your team's aura reading abilities by however many meters. That meter range has now been extended to 8, 12, 16, but now no longer stacks itself. So sometimes people used to take aura reading abilities, and then in a 4-man stack, everyone would take open-handed, and then obviously that perk would stack with itself, and then your aura reading abilities were like crazy big. Now it no longer stacks with itself, so they're basically trying to make it so that you can bring it in solo and not have to rely on other perks as much, or other people to bring it in as well, for it to be like fully efficient and useful. It now doesn't stack, so it's more of like a solo perk, which is great. It's fine. Zanshin Tactics. If you guys don't know, Zanshin Tactics is a only killer perk, which basically showed the killer all of the like vault locations, the pallet locations, the breakable walls. But every time a killer broke a pallet or broke a breakable wall, it would go on cooldown for like, for no reason. There was no reason for that. I feel like most of the point of Zanshin Tactics was you chase someone, they'd drop a pallet, you kick that pallet, and then you could see where they were going and what pallet you'd have to play around. But because of the cooldown, it didn't really work well, and it was just kind of useless. There was a lot of stuff on your screen, and for people who, it's quite a good beginner perk for killer, because you can kind of see what you're going to have to deal with. But for most killers, once you get a few hours into the game, you start learning what kind of loops you're going to be coming up against, and you kind of know where pallets are going to be. So it was kind of a useless perk, but I guess now it has a larger range, which is great as well, because previously you wouldn't really be able to see what was around you apart from like the tile you were at, which again kind of made the perk useless. But now it has a larger range, and is now permanently active, which is awesome. Great. Amazing. A really, really solid beginner's killer perk if you're really having trouble with loops and, knowing when to like pre-swing, or, when to respect around corners and stuff like that. So, yeah. Brilliant. All right, Borrowed Time. This is quite a big change, I think, personally. To remove some confusing intricacies with how Borrowed Time interacts with some killers and the Oblivious status effect, we've now removed the Terror Radius condition from the perk. To compensate, we have reduced the duration of the Endurance effect to 8, 10, 12 seconds. So basically, the way Borrowed Time used to work is if the survivor on the hook was within the Terror Radius of the killer, if the person unhooking him had Borrowed Time would activate, and you'd basically get the Endurance status effect. So if the killer tried to tunnel you off the hook, you'd get hit, but you wouldn't go down. Crazy stuff. Now it works with stealth killers and killers like Freddy. So previously, because of that terror radius condition, if you were asleep, Freddy technically doesn't have a terror radius. So if you were to unhook someone while you were asleep, they wouldn't get while they were asleep, they wouldn't get the borrowed time effect. So they would go down off the hook, even with borrowed time. The same sort of thing with Michael Tier 1, but that very rarely happened. But Wraith, Ghostface, Pig, etc. So a really, really, really nice change, because a lot of people would catch you off guard with this, and it kind of felt a bit unfair. Okay, so Object of Obsession. This is something that they've sort of described in the past, but it looks like they're actually going to bring it into the game now, which is awesome. Object of Obsession has needed to change for a super long time. It's basically just seen as a pretty toxic perk. It offered a lot to the survivor with not a ton of drawbacks for the killer, and in certain situations it could be really frustrating. I know a lot of killer mains who would go into a match, see an Object of Obsession, and instantly just sort of go, oh, really? Because you instantly know if the team's on comms and one person's running Object, they know where you are, they know who you are, and it's a really easy way for your best looper to draw the killer in and then just have everyone else sit on gens for the game. So the change they made: anytime your aura is revealed to the killer, their aura is revealed to you, and you gain a 246% bonus to healing, repairing, and cleansing. If you are the obsession, your aura is revealed to the killer for 3 seconds every 30 seconds. So this now kind of works like it's basically distortion with a pro and a con. If you guys don't know, distortion is a Jeff perk that basically you'd start the game with 3 tokens, and every time the killer saw your aura, you'd lose a token, so you know when the killer was seeing you. So you'd be able to tell very early if the killer was running barbecue and chili, for example. And then later on in the game, you could avoid that by like going into a locker or something. So they've kind of added this to Object of Obsession, and then also given you, a buff to healing, repairing, and cleansing speed every time the killer sees you. But obviously the killer also sees your aura, so it's a bit of a pro and con situation. Either way, I think it's a really good change. I think this perk's going to be much less annoying as a killer, and honestly much more tempting as a survivor. Like, I never run Objects of Obsession in my games, because even if I want to start chases with the killer and want to practice whatever, I just feel a bit bad about doing it, because I know a lot of killers hate it. So this is now a perk that I could run comfortably as survivor, and it's useful as well as not being annoying for the killer. So yeah, great changes. They've also done some miscellaneous balances. Miscellaneous, I think that's how you say it. Balance. So toolboxes, obviously right now are kind of just, I think if you see them as a killer, you're thinking, this sucks. If you're using them as a survivor, they're relatively boring. They're just sort of like a means to an end of getting a gen done quicker, but that's basically it. And even like most of the toolboxes you bring into a game aren't going to save you a whole lot of time. If you want to know, a detailed explanation on that, just go to Otz's channel and look at his item tier list video. He goes into real detail about the exact percentages and seconds that each toolbox offers you with the add-ons. So if you want to know, but the overarching thing is that it's, a toolbox is going to save you a matter of seconds, but below 10 on a gem, which can make a difference in a game. Don't get me wrong. If you stack 4 of the best toolboxes in the game together with brand new parts, I guarantee you those gems are going to fly. And as a killer, it's a really painful thing to come up against. But they've kind of changed it a little bit. So the chance to receive a skill check while using a toolbox has been increased, which is cool. This change makes toolboxes feel more interactive while they're in use, and is not totally. And then they make a joke about the lead designer having a skill check challenge. This is fine. It's a small change. I don't think it's going to change anything overall, realistically. Having skill checks is just a way of making, pressing M1 on a generator for 5 minutes in a game straight feel a little bit more interesting and keeping you concentrating. It is what it is. It's more blood points, I guess, for the skill checks if you hit them, of course. I guess for the killer as well if they miss those skill checks. But let's be honest, survivors are hitting skill checks. We've prepped with DS for years now. I think they've managed normal skill checks. But yeah, a small little change. Hopefully they do some more stuff in the future. But for right now, that's absolutely fine. And now here's another small interesting change. So with hatches, we've decreased the time the hatch remains open after a key is used from 30 seconds to 10 seconds. Like before, if the hatch closes naturally, as in the killer doesn't kick it, the end game collapse will not start. This is nice because keys obviously a really frustrating part of the game for killer, and they even say here that this is not the final change to keys. They'll be receiving more in the future, but as of right now, they're staying pretty much the same. But the fact that the hatch now closes after 10 seconds is great because it means that survivors who are together, or maybe if you're solo queuing with a key, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get multiple people out of that match with a key, unless you're, actually going up to them and going, come, look, I have a key, let's go. And if they're in chase, this becomes even harder. So a nice little change to keys, and obviously more in the future. They've also made some changes to the HUD. This is just quality of life stuff. Doctor's Madness effect is now easier to differentiate between the level of madness you're at from 1 to 3. This is awesome because I find myself personally a lot of the time it's quite hard to determine what stage of madness I'm at. I usually look at the status effect on the right instead of on the left, where the blurry little lines go next to your character icon. So yeah, hopefully this is a nice change. But again, we have to wait and see to see if it's actually any good. Obviously, Freddy's Dream World effect and sleep timer have completely changed. We talked about that earlier. That would be nice. I think they've added a yellow color for when you are basically immune to being put to sleep, which is cool. The Plague's infection meters changing, and then the Stalk meters and Ghostface's mark. This is awesome because I play a lot of Michael, and I like stealth killers as well. I like stalking killers, like Ghostface and Michael, as I said. And sometimes it's kind of really hard to tell when you're 99ing, especially with a lot of the dedicated server changes. It looks like you're 99'd on Michael, but then it drags back to 70%. It's what? Because on the survivor screen, they're not on your screen, but on your screen, it's weird. There's a lot of videos that you can look up about that kind of thing, but hopefully this will make it a bit easier to not accidentally 100% Michael's tier 3, and also just keep an idea of where you're at with your 99, and maybe make it a bit more effective, which is awesome. Now, this is the struggle update. This is interesting. So if you want to have a look at what this looks like visually, go on to Dead by Daylight's Twitter. They have a really cool video of this, but it's kind of, I can explain it and it's basically fine. Basically, they've changed the way that struggle works. Instead of now having to spam your space key bar, or, if you're a real gamer, scroll your mouse wheel quick. Instead of having to do that, now it's just going to be skill check based. And apparently the skill checks are going to be slightly bigger than usual skill checks, like on a generator and stuff. They'll be sort of more like Pyramid Head's cage skill checks, if you've, I'm sure you all know what that is. And I think they said that it's going to be, the normal rate of skill checks is not going to be crazy. You're not going to have to be there every 3 seconds one's going to come up. But if you miss one, your struggle meter will decrease by a chunk. And if you miss 2, you'll be immediately sacrificed. I think this is a super nice change. They said that this is a change to make struggling more accessible to players with repetitive strain injuries like carpal tunnel, which is awesome for those kind of people. I think it's also just a general nice change for most people, because most people don't really like spamming the space key. I know it. I find it kind of annoying, and sometimes I'll slip or I'll forget to do it, just because I'm talking to stream or whatever, and I'll just kill myself on it. It's just it feels so stupid to do. So now, at least with the skill checks, if you miss one, it's it's your own fault. And finally, last but not least, they have released this. This was leaked a couple of days ago, but I didn't want to cover it because leaks. It's weird. But I'm sure a lot of you know that the next rework that they're doing to the collection of maps is the Coldwind Farm, which is awesome. Coldwind Farm's been one of those maps that's kind of been left behind. There are a lot of issues. I know a couple of the Cowshed Farm maps are now considered the strongest survivor maps in the game, with a lot of incredibly difficult loops for killer, and Fractured Cowshed loop. A lot of times you play these maps and you'll see a survivor run towards a certain area and you just have to drop the chase, because even if you want to chase them, they're just going to such a strong loop that it's not worth your time going to that place and trying to catch them. So hopefully they sort out a lot of the issues that Coldwind has had. And the biggest thing for me personally, just because I play a lot of Michael, is the changes to the corn. Previously, it's super hard to not only see survivors through the corn, but stalk survivors through the corn. I don't know why, but the sort of visual hitboxes, I guess, when you're stalking a survivor, never really work through corn at all, unless you're super, super close to the survivor. So I'm hoping with these, with the new corn, they kind of look like they're a bit more spaced out and like a little bit easier to see through. I'm hoping that both tracking and stalking is going to be significantly improved on these maps. But yeah, if you guys want to take a look at these maps, they're on Twitter. You know, these are the only images we have so far. But yeah, really, really exciting stuff. And that is it. So overall, I think this patch is going to be amazing. I think there's going to be a whole ton of new perks or not new perks, but reworked perks to try out and test and have fun with. The new Cold Wind's going to be great to play on. You know, now seeing a Cold Wind offering when you go into a game as killer won't be the worst thing in the world. You know, it'll actually be fun, hopefully. But again, we'll have to see. The changes to Freddy are also interesting. I think now coming against Freddy won't be as miserable as it was before. But that's pretty much it. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. If you have anything extra that I didn't mention, that I've missed or something, or something cool that you noticed while I was reading that you want to try out, leave it below. Remember to like and subscribe. I'm going to do more of these discussion videos as things come out that I want to discuss, because I find it interesting to like talk to you guys face to face. Hope you guys enjoy this kind of content too. We'll have more gameplays coming out. I'm just waiting on thumbnails to be completed right now. But apart from that, guys, I'll leave you at that. Thank you. It's been a long one.